Welcome, everybody, to Reality Change with Kris. And those of you who have watched our previous shows may notice that we've changed the decor a little bit here. We're hoping that this is going to be more comfortable. And we will be getting on with Kris very, very shortly. But first, I should introduce myself and my friend. My name is John Hawkins. Very happy to be here, and this is my friend Serge Granbois.
Hey John, and I'm glad we have these marvelous red channeling hot chairs.
We are easily amused, aren't we?
Yes.
Okay, well, last time Kris had a very interesting discussion, as always, about programming. How we can change some of our programming, how we're not locked in to always react in the same ways to the same situations. He talked about desire and beliefs and all the good stuff. So let's see what we're going to talk about this week.
Should be interesting. Just have to ring the bell and
Yes.
let him come in.
Yes.
Or call him.
So that bell works both ways, eh? Apparently.
Now we trust that you are comfortable.
Thank you.
And we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for yours, Kris.
And we are appreciative of the new decor and the comfort that they provide. Indeed, during the last presentation, we spoke about a variety of interrelated topics. So it might be useful to also understand how the individual easily becomes attached to his or her creations. The events, circumstances, situations of his or her personal life. From that, you have the formation of beliefs. And you could say that it is a situation of whether the egg came first or the chicken came first. Because they are intertwined so very tightly, in fact. So you have in your own life experience many situations where you have experienced a desire, a want, something that you aspired to have, to hold, to look at, to enjoy with your different senses. So already you have invested a certain amount of energy towards acquiring that which you desired, that which you wanted. Do you follow?
Yes.
Eventually, through one means or another, you acquire that which you desired. So now the object of your desire is within your grasp. You hold it. You can touch it, you can smell it, you can hear it, depending upon the object itself and its nature. So you have now a confirmation that what you desired is attainable in one form or another, or one way or another. It is now a physical part of your reality. It is
Right.
part of you in one way or another. Simply because it is a physical object that is not part of your body is irrelevant to the mind. The mind is the seat of the physical senses. So the mind suddenly recognizes that which was desired previously. So this is a confirmation to the mind that this belongs to self. And in this situation, self is in small letters.
Okay.
It is not belonging to the higher or inner self. It belongs to the physical self. So it is an important asset to its physicality. It identifies with the object as part of its then temporal nature. Whether it is a lamp, a table, a chair, a television, a car, a job, a wife, a children, that develops attachments. This is mine, it belongs to me, it is part of my experience. So it begins to infuse the temporal aspects of the personality. There is a sense of identification with it. These are my children, this is my wife, my house, my car, my job, my clothes, my looks, my hair, etc.
Right.
Do you follow?
I think so.
So that sense of identification brings it in and gives it a powerful meaning to what you call your subconscious or unconscious mind, even though these are simply terms for reference's sake. Now, along with that, you have the interplay or interconnectedness of all the various beliefs you hold about yourself as a human being.
Right.
So whether you were raised in an affluent environment or an environment where there was a lack of affluence in those terms, or anything in between, you will feel different kinds of attachments, grabbing onto this object, that object, everything that is in your field of so-called possessions.
Right.
And again, according to the various beliefs that you have cultivated, that you have maintained, the points of view, the notions, etc. All built and particular, how do we say, a particular and very specific set of resonances that are absorbed by the mind. So that sense of identification, which says this is mine, I own this, I possess that, and so on and so forth, is attached to the conditioned ego that does not necessarily realize that at some point in the unfolding of sequences you call time, at some point along that line of development, you will have to give it up. And if you give it up at any other time, you may experience some trauma of one kind or another. You will feel sad for the loss of your object,
Right.
whatever that object be. You will feel some degree of loss or sadness. Now, if it is a cherished individual, that sense of loss is even greater, because you have invested even more emotional energy, whether it be a relationship as a lover, partner, father, mother, brother, sister, child, and so on and so forth. And these are all categorized very neatly by your, again, so-called unconscious or subconscious mind. So the whole sense of self-identification is tied into this particular phenomenon of reality creation from the point of view of the ego, or the ego structure,
Right.
which is very conditioned along the very same lines. Your televisions are replete with all manner of advertisements that encourage this kind of attachment creation.
Sure.
And that seem to convince you that without these things, whether it be a new car, house, and so on and so forth, without these things you are perhaps failing in your duty as a good consumer, as a good citizen, participating in the consensus reality.
Sure, you're not with it, you're not cool, you're not happening, you're not having fun, unless you're drinking Coke.
And so on and so forth.
Right.
Coke in its various forms.
Okay.
So now, this all weighs in as part of the conditioning that is attached to the ego. That particular aspect of the self comes to firmly believe that this is crucial to the identity.
Uh-huh.
For instance, many ladies carry a purse. And what do you find in that purse? Not just lipstick, hairbrushes, and this and that, but a type of sense of identification. The wallet and all the ID, sometimes for the entire family, is in that little bag.
Do you know what's interesting? Just quickly, a friend of mine once told me that she had lost her purse, and her literal words were, "I have lost my identity."
Indeed. That is why we bring it up. Now, there is such a thing as a physical purse. Some men carry something similar. But this is the psychological expression, or rather the physical expression of the psychological identity tied into the material creation.
Mm-hmm.
That sense of loss of identity is at the surface most layers of one's self, tied only with the conditioned ego. Because one can never truly lose your sense of identity. You can feel a, how do we say, a disturbance in the force related to the ego structure.
Right.
And if the individual is not truly aware of any greater dimensions to self, then it can even be devastating
Oh, sure.
to have to go through the process of legal recognition of one's social identity. Social, natural, national, cultural, and so on and so forth. And you also have in your television and other advertisements, radio and so on, a great emphasis placed upon all of these things as very important to establish one's identity in a cultural sense. So it is understandable that such things bring about great distress when they are lost or stolen, for that matter.
Do you know, it's interesting you mentioned stolen, because in our society today, there's a new thing. It's called identity theft.
Indeed.
As if someone could take your real identity. I mean, that's based on an idea of identity that's completely material.
Indeed. It does have financial repercussions on many, many layers. But in truth, one can never lose your identity because it is eternal. Your personality is what stays even though the body no longer functions. Your sense of self has been present from the moment you are born. Your parents give you a name. Interestingly enough, it is often based upon what they sense as your specific personality in this lifetime. Not that you have demonstrated any particular traits or characteristics.
Right.
You are newborn.
Right.
But still there is a greater dimension at play. And very often the mother may have had an communication through dream states or powerful intuitive experiences in regards to the child or even children that she is carrying in her womb.
Ah.
So often the names are based upon all of these various factors. For example, so the sense of identity is also ingrained from a very young age. Boys should participate in boyish things, and girls should participate in girlish things, girlish events, boyish events. Girls should not wear blue. Boys should not wear pink. Boys should not wear skirts. They should not play with their mother's high heels, and they should not wear tutus or skirts and paint their faces.
No.
Many people pretty near have a conniption when they see these things happen, because they fear that you will damage their gender identification.
Their gender identification.
The child's.
Ah, yes, right.
But in truth, it is often the adult's sense of gender identification that is threatened.
That's what I was thinking.
Indeed. So you have then the ingraining of gender identity in the child. Boys should act in one way. Girls should act in another. Boys should never cry. Girls should cry. Girls should be weak. Boys should be strong. And so many other things. It often boggles even a cosmic mind. That you put so many restrictions upon your infants, and you literally encase them in particular role modeling that artificially identifies them. Talk about brainwashing.
When I'm just thinking about last week when we talked about video games.
Indeed.
Really, what we're doing is programming that personality.
Correct. So this kind of programming goes on unnoticed. No one ever thinks twice about these things. But it goes on all the time. This is how this kind of person should act. This is how that kind of individual should act. So you set particular boundaries, and if one literally draws their identity outside of the line, there are repercussions. Now you are trying as a society to expand those boundaries. Same-sex rights and recognitions. And in many areas, this is pushed back against and doubled down upon in a heavy-handed manner. Because the orthodoxy and the traditionalists do not like reality drawn outside the lines or the parameters that they have established.
Because it threatens their sense of identity.
Indeed. It is like saying that because you might be on a diet, no one else should eat sweets. Does that make sense to you?
No.
Indeed not. So you have an magnificent display of conditioning or programming or brainwashing. It is all the same throughout the spectrum of society. Whether it is from the old world or the new world, it is irrelevant. It has been going on for thousands of years. And there have always been offshoots of cultures that challenge those particular boundaries. They push those particular envelopes. And it does not happen because those individuals have chosen a particular lifestyle. It is because those who hold the reins hold them too tightly and enforce that rule with a heavy hand to the point of committing a genocide. Mm-hmm. And those boundaries are shaken and pushed because your own innate nature does not want to be compressed in a tiny box of sardine-like limitations. In fact, it not only abhors a vacuum, it abhors those types of restrictions, which in themselves act like a vacuum, where literally the life is sucked out of life. We are not advocating that everybody do just whatever they will want to, because you also function as a society. You are social creatures. You live by establishing certain bounds. That is how you express yourselves. But when those boundaries become too tight, too confining, too restrictive, then your psyche, yourselves, find underground ways to overturn that apple cart, at least to get it shaking enough so that eventually it is overturned. Do you follow?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think what you're describing is happening all around this planet today.
And you are experiencing many of these things.
Well,
but not in the way you think. The real difficulties are usually kept behind the scenes. Your media and your governments try to shift your attention to the small things, creating mountains out of molehills, whilst behind the scenes you still have all the difficulties that set these up by those who would like to establish control of the society and the media, so that you do not pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
right.
You just pay attention to all the flames and the smoke, mirrors.
Smoke and mirrors, yeah.
Indeed. And this goes on all the time. Again, because as a culture and as a people, as a species, you are caught in a dichotomy. You are afraid of change. You are afraid to leave what you know to venture towards what you do not know. Whereas at the same time having an innate understanding that it is only through such changes that you grow as a people, that you expand the boundaries of your awareness. So change is very difficult for your species, and yet it is the only way that you actually become to know who you are. So we suggest a small break.
All right.
Indeed then.
Thank you very much, Kris. We're back, and as usual, we've got just a couple of announcements before we invite Kris back. The first one is we're going to have another presentation at Origo Books on Tuesday, October 14th at 6 p.m. 49 Lower Jarvis, for those of you in Toronto who can make it. And the title is The Zen of Channeling.
Yes.
That's kind of an intriguing title to me. The Zen of motorcycle maintenance comes to mind.
Yeah, Kris is going to, well, I'm going to talk a little bit as well, because I've been, doing the quote-unquote channeling for anywhere between 35 and 38 years now.
Right.
And then Kris is going to come in giving his own perspective on these things as well.
Aha. And what is the Zen? I mean, I'm intrigued by the Zen. It seems to suggest something a little more than something mechanical and logical.
No, I expect it'll, especially from Kris's point of view, he'll explain a bit more what's going on during the energy exchanges and stuff like that.
Right.
And maybe some other things. He sort of hinted to me that he'll be asking people in the audience, those who are participating, to actually put aside everything they think they know about it.
Good start, eh? Clean
And,
slate.
yeah. So it should be interesting. I expect it'll probably be revealing in a way.
Oh, I'm sure. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we have international sessions, and they're every second Wednesday evening. It's a Skype call, and anywhere from half a dozen to a dozen people from around the world can be part of those. They tend to not be, well, they're not a part of a seminar. They're one-offs, but you get to ask questions.
Yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah.
We, anybody who's interested can go to the website, which is lotus-mind, M-I-N-D, .ca, and look for in the menu bar on the side for international sessions and get the information what they need to participate, and they can sign up for that evening. We have one tonight, as a matter of fact,
Oh, is this for the old folks or the new folks?
for the regulars.
Oh,
And the description of the different evenings or what they're for is available there as well.
okay. The final thing I wanted to point out is that on that same website, lotus-mind.ca, this special book is available, which has a great deal of information about, it's called A Field Guide to Dreams, and it's a book that Kris and Serge and Mark Bucater produced a number of years ago, but it's full of good stuff, and it's available on the website along with a bunch of other stuff as well. Okay, that's all I got.
Kris has more.
Well, good. Kris has more. Welcome back, Kris.
Indeed. As discussed moments ago, one's desiring nature produces interesting, even fascinating results. From the initial seed of the desire itself, how it comes into being, how the objects themselves, the things that you desire, come to manifest and become part of one's sense of temporal identity. They are part of the conditioned ego, and how this influences so many different areas of one's life, and not just at the individual level, but at the collective level. And how many other industries feed into that. So everything in your consumer society actually feeds the furnace of desires.
Oh, yeah,
More
for sure.
and more so. And yet, few actually recognize that in spite of this tremendous industry to fuel the desires so that you consume more and more of the things that you desire, so you think. More and more individuals are recognizing this is not bringing them the happiness that in the back of their mind, somewhere deep inside, they want to experience, but have lost their sense of being happy. That individuals are recognizing that the more things you acquire in life, you're not any happier. It has even been recognized that even though some may think that the rich must be happy because they can get whatever they want, actually they are not any happier. They simply have more things to worry about than those who have less.
And be attached to and be worried,
Indeed.
yeah.
Now, there are certain oases of happiness here and there, little camps here and there, but these are often invaded by another set of disappointments which leads you to look somewhere else for continued happiness, like a bee, from flower to flower to flower to flower. In this flower there must be some happiness. Oh, I have not found that. Oh, perhaps in this flower. But you are conditioned to keep searching. That over the next hill you will find that happiness. Over the next yard the grass will be greener. And you look at it and say, well, it is not any greener. I have waited and looked at so many yards, and it is still not any greener than this one or that one. Mm-hmm. So ultimately, you hit a brick wall, and you begin to wonder, is there more to life than that? What is the happiness everyone seeks? The quest for happiness. What is it? Who has the answer? We can tell you that regardless of whom you ask in that conditioned state, you will never find the proper answer unless you look behind the curtain. But in this case, you must look behind the curtain of your own self. Mm-hmm. So now, the wizard is you.
Mm-hmm. The wizard is you.
Indeed. That is what you have to look for, and that is where you have to look for. You must look behind all the facades, all the layers of the conditioned self. And it does not take a trek deep into the Himalayas to do that. You must be comfortable with searching for answers inside. And we know it is perhaps a trite offering. But if you truly look at your experience, you will recognize that happiness is not something that can be found outside of whom you are. Because if you develop happiness within, then regardless of the things available in the world or the things not available in the world to you, your happiness will not waver. It will not be like a candlelight, a flame in the wind. Mm-hmm. It will be securely protected by a deep-rooted sense of being, not in the fleeting moments of or glimpses of happiness here and there offered in the world, but by your own security, being rooted, being grounded in your true nature, which is self with a capital S. Your eternal nature as the soul. Regardless of the offerings and the temptations, look here, you might be happy with this, you might be happy with that. You can literally step back. Look at this realistically and acknowledge, yes, these are all magnificent manifestations of desires. But if you truly want lasting happiness, then you will not invest yourself in the nature of things.
Which are temporary.
Do forgive us, David Suzuki.
Yes.
But
okay.
you will recognize that you must invest in yourself and understand your eternal nature. Who is going to be happy? Because the self, the eternal self, already is happy. You have been conditioned that if you do not have that thing, if you don't have that thing, if you do not have the biggest, brightest, best, latest, newest, most revised, this and that, how can you claim to be a happy individual?
Well, ever since they announced the iPhone 6 Plus, I have realized that that is the key to my happiness.
Indeed, people were happy with the iPhone 5 and 5S. iPhone 6 and 6 Plus comes along. Oh, I am no longer happy with what I had because it is temporary and it will cost you. So the mechanisms of the industry of temporary happiness keeps churning and churning. That is what you call consumerism.
Right.
And it is a great machine. It pushes forward and pushes everything out of its way to convince you, please consider this. This will make you happy. And after a while, you realize that your desire to have it, brought you more titillations than having the thing in itself.
Oh, that's interesting. So wanting it was more engaging ultimately than actually getting it.
Do you understand why?
No.
Because it actually kicks in that whole inner mechanism of creating, manifesting the object in one way or another. That is what you want.
Which is the fun part.
Indeed.
Actually getting it has always got to be disappointing, ultimately.
To one degree or another. And the same goes for life. When you have the so-called unrealistic expectations concerning what life should give you, only to be in one disappointment after another, until you realize that life cannot give you anything. You must give yourself meaning. You must uncover your own fulfillment. That is where the important issues lie. It does not matter the background or the culture. Until such a thing becomes part of your society to a greater degree, you will have continued marches for equality.
We're getting a lot of that these days.
Indeed, and you will continue. Because the issue is not equality in that sense. The issue is equal happiness, not as male or female genders, but as beings. Can I actually tap into my own happiness? And the answer is yes, but it will not come from the things of the world. These can only hint at, but the realities often fall far short of the expectation. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. And in terms of happiness, I've seen studies that show that you were mentioning that maybe the assumption might be that rich people are happy. That's really, really not true. Just look at pictures of rich people. They've done studies, and apparently blue-collar workers in a family environment are the happiest. They go to work every day, they have a big family around them, and they're enjoying life.
Indeed. And it has also been recognized that it is often those with less affluence that tend to give more to those in even worse situations.
Right, for sure.
Because they understand something different, that the things do not bring you the happiness. It is the giving of yourself, of your time, your energy, your finances, your things to share, and that is where the greatest bonds of unity come about. And we are not saying that the things of the world are to be avoided or that they are evil, that you must exorcise them from your life. No. We are emphasizing that recognize where happiness must come from. And you will find that there are indeed radical paradigm shifts, not only in your own perceptions of reality, but in the whole society.
Yeah, these are pretty exciting times.
Indeed, you are being pushed, and the envelope is being pushed. So it behooves every intelligent individual to look at the situation they have in life and determine, do they want to keep running from thing to thing to thing in the hope that something will bring them happiness or joy? Or can they be themselves in a completely different way, and that the things are merely an token of their inner happiness, a representation of it? Does that make sense?
Well, yes, the thing that I keyed into that you mentioned earlier, which really strikes home to me in my experience, is that the anticipation of something, an event or an object, is for sure that's the most delicious part for me. And again, the actual getting of it. I'm thinking about when I got a new iPad or something like that. It's never what you imagine it might be is always more fun and scintillating than what it actually is. It's nice, but it's not.
Indeed, if you think for a moment about making a nice chocolate cake from scratch, which is more interesting than making one from a package, you get all of your ingredients together, all the dry ingredients, you mix them, the wet ingredients, you mix them, and then you have your batter, and then you pour it into the pan after it has been nicely greased, and then you put it in the oven.
I can tell you've made a cake.
We have made many cakes. Now, before and during that entire process, you anticipate the end result, which is in itself very nice. But the making of it yourself, and then the sharing of that cake with others, that brings excitement. Very few people will reluctantly make and bake a cake. Very few people. Otherwise, what is the point? You do it because there is an excitement, a certain love of the experience, and the love of tasting the result, especially when it is being shared.
For sure.
So that is a bigger thing than the chocolate cake itself.
So for me, in my life, just taking notes, what I am understanding is that to have projects on the go where I'm anticipating and expecting fun and interesting results, which I'm going to share, is a pretty important, it's more important than having a car in the garage and having a stack of money here. No, the fun part is, let's go on a trip and we'll take those people and we'll have fun, and then, you know, that's the part.
Now, we suggested that there was a reason for that. Now we are suggesting that there is yet an other greater layer of reason for that.
Okay.
That is because it is in your innate, eternal nature to create, to desire so that it becomes manifest. It is part of your eternal thing. It is that thing that you do.
That thing I do. All right.
Indeed. That is what it is. You cannot not do that. Just like you cannot try to convince the beaver that it is not in its nature to make a dam, to chew the trees and make the dam,
Right.
or a bee to collect pollen and nectar, or the termite to chew the wood in the house.
So
All of these things, they are part of these creatures' nature, and so is desiring and creating. That is what you do.
Well, what I'm realizing from what you've said is my nature, every human being's nature, is to desire and create. Now, it's up to us and what we've been, the tools and techniques that we've been talking about, whether or not the desiring and the creating is a pleasant, fulfilling process or a frustrating, horrible process. It can go either way.
Indeed. And if it is frustrating, you have set that up so that you can recognize how to align yourself properly, so that if you want to bake a chocolate cake, do not go and bake potatoes instead. It will not bring the same adventure. But if you want to bake potatoes, then by all means, do the best baked potatoes you can.
Right.
So this is a simple process to recognize, and if you come to its realization in one way or another, then it will open the doors to a greater vision of what life is about. Because you are not stuck in the little sandbox. You are in an vast, vast territory of creativity. But if you keep sticking yourself in this little corner, then you will never truly experience just how profound and powerful your nature is. And if you notice at the very beginning of the discussion, we built this up to come to this point.
Yeah.
So we suggest strongly to introspect, to ponder this, to think about it, and then put it into action. And with that, we return Joseph, and we thank you for your delectable consideration.
Well, thank you, Kris.
And again, we thank our production manager, Michael.
Thank you, Kris. Well, folks, as always, a wonderful show. Thank you all for watching. I don't think we have any final deal except to say we're going to do this again next week, and we hope you enjoy the new set design. We'll talk to you.
These chairs are hot to go.
Aren't they great? So we'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.